Alright, so if I could jump back in time, here are 5 things that I would tell my younger self. Alright, what's up, my friend? If you're tuning in for the first time, my name is Jackie Ferrari, and on this channel, I make content related to faith, life, and motivation. I also make music, and I sometimes do spoken word poetry as well. So if you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a comment below and also check out some of my other videos. But yeah, let's get into this. So number 1, this is something that really hit hard for me. I think I first learned this back in like 2022. But number 1 is to stop letting people make you feel guilty. You see, I learned this from one of my favorite motivational speakers. His name is Trent Shelton. He's got some amazing content. Go check it out. But the thing, his kind of the slogan or theme or message of his content is protecting your peace. And one of the ways you can protect your peace is by to stop letting other people make you feel guilty about things that you shouldn't feel guilty for, or things that aren't quote unquote wrong. But yeah, Trent Shelton always talks about protecting your peace. And because here's the deal. A lot of people in this world are manipulative and they're selfish. And they try to make you feel guilty when what you're doing doesn't serve them. When you don't do the things that they want you to do, or when you don't act in a certain way, or when you try to put up boundaries and tell them no because they start to feel guilty. They're feeling that conviction. Oh, this person's putting up boundaries, telling me I shouldn't be doing something. And now they start to feel guilty. So then they try to make you feel guilty. It's crazy how that works. Now, this is something I'm still learning how to do. I'm not perfect at this. Still learning how to do this. It can especially be hard when the person who's often manipulating you is someone you're living with or someone you're interacting with every day. So it can be tricky. But the best way to respond to manipulation is often to not respond at all. Just accept whatever people say. Don't try to prove yourself by simply saying, don't try to prove yourself. I'll talk more about this in point number 5. But, just establish strong boundaries. And oftentimes people are not going to like that, but that's okay. You don't have to prove yourself. You don't have to explain yourself. Just let people know clearly. Be clear. Hey, I don't like what you're doing. Don't let people make you feel guilty for doing what's best for you. And I'm not going to go too deep into this, but I think you get the idea. So again, my friend, don't fall for it. Don't change somebody's preferences. Don't change your boundaries or your preferences because someone tries to heap a false sense of guilt onto you. You see, it's manipulative. It's wrong. And God is going to punish people who are unrepentant when they do things like this. So don't give in to other people's manipulation in order to avoid conflict. If they make you feel guilty, that's okay. Let them. Just because somebody condemns you doesn't mean you did anything wrong. There's the thing, false accusations are real. So don't fall for that person's attempts. So here's the thing. It's usually a reflection of that person's inability to respect other people and their inability to also ask for what they need or want in their life. And often the people who guilt you the most, unfortunately, are your family and friends because they care about you, or they claim to care about you and love you. And they, I think they genuinely do want the best for you. Some of them don't, but some of them, want the best for you. And they try to make you feel guilty because they want to make you feel because oftentimes they want to make you feel guilty because, you're exposing something in them. And I get it. Dynamics with them can be super complicated. And sometimes the people closest to us can have the biggest influence on how we feel, but don't fall for their tricks and their traps. Remember, don't fall for their tricks. See, I remember in high school, there were these 2 girls who always tried to guilt trip me. And so I went to a boarding school for high school from grades 8 through 12. I'm actually going to share some of my story on boarding school, what that experience was like in a future video. But I went to boarding school. And so not only did I see these girls every single day, but we lived in the same building as them, which meant, there's a higher potential for conflict, right? Because I'm seeing them more often. And I remember every time I did something wrong or did something remotely close to wrong, it's like they were waiting for me to mess up, and they'd always point it out, and they'd always try to make me feel bad and
always bring up my past mistakes and issues, and
their ultimate aim was to make me feel guilty. Now, I don't know 100% know their intentions, but part of it could have been because they didn't like me. It could have been because I was exposing things in them. It could have been because of my Christian faith, because they weren't necessarily anti-Christian, because one of them claimed to be Christian, but they also weren't exactly they didn't go to church every Sunday. Like, one of the girls was raised in church, but she wasn't exactly like a true Christian, what I would call. And so there's many reasons why they could have tried to make me feel guilty. I don't know the reasons. But, I wish that I had approached those interactions knowing what I know now, and I could have saved myself a lot of heartache and a lot of conversations. And I could have made them respect, and I could have showed myself a little bit more respect in those areas. Because had I stood up for myself, had I known what to say, how to respond appropriately, is not to prove them wrong, but just to show them what I'm not going to tolerate. That's what it's about. And so I'll end with this before I get into number 2. Remember, you have every right to protect your energy and your peace, so do not let anyone guilt you into thinking otherwise. If somebody tries to guilt you for protecting your energy and your peace, Number 2 is that progress is not linear. This is also another one that really hit hard. See, sometimes in life, you're going to take 2 steps forward and then 1 step back. See, progress doesn't always look linear. And sometimes progress looks like taking 2 steps forward and then 2 steps back, which might seem crazy. Or you might even take 2 steps forward and take 3 steps back sometimes. I know this happened in my life. Sometimes taking steps backward, well, obviously does not lead to immediate progress. It can lead to future progress because progress does not look linear. Honestly, that's probably my favorite point in here today. Progress doesn't look linear. It's something I'm still having to remind myself of. Just because you take a step back or you have hard times doesn't mean you're not making progress, doesn't mean you can't still move forward. Think about it like shooting an arrow. You know, when you shoot an arrow, you have to pull it back, right? So you can release it. That backward motion is not a sign that the arrow is not working. It's not a sign of failure, but it's what builds the momentum that the arrow needs to actually propel forward, right? It's the same thing with your life. Sometimes you going backwards is not a sign of you failing, but it's a sign that it's giving you the momentum that you need to actually move forward and grow. And those moments when you feel like you're going backwards, they might be setting you up for a bigger leap forward in the future. So sometimes you have to go backwards so that you can go forwards. And, often progress looks like going up and down and then way up, and then you may come way back down. Then you may go down even further. Then you may go back up, and then life is just like that. It's just like that. And also remember, hopefully this encourages you that God doesn't waste anything. So even if you go in circles, even if your life is just all down, like God doesn't waste any of that. So every step that you take, even the ones that feel like they're going in the wrong direction, has a purpose. There's a Bible verse, I think you all know Romans 8:28, and we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. See, obviously not all things are good that happen to us, but God works all things. You see, God can take anything that happens to you, even your mistakes, he can work it all for your good. If you love him and are called according to his purpose and are obeying his commands, right? And are trying to please him, right? God can take anything and work that for your good. This means that even when things don't go as planned, this is a promise for Christians. I don't want to make it seem like this is a promise for everybody, but again, this is only a promise for Christians. So if you're not a person of faith, I still believe that things can work out in your favor, but just know that this Bible verse is for Christians. I don't want to make it seem like this is for everyone. But this means that even when things don't go as planned, if you're a Christian, even when it feels like you're moving in the wrong direction, God is still at work. He's still using those moments to shape you, to teach you, and to prepare you for what's coming next in your life. So again, also stop comparing your journey to someone else's. Your path is unique, it's your path, and it's guided by a purpose that's just for you. Progress doesn't always look the way we expect it to. Sometimes it's messy, sometimes it's slow. I know it's been that way for me in my YouTube journey the past few months, and even just doing music stuff and trying to start different business ideas. Like, it's been slow, it's been messy, it hasn't been what I expected. It's been frustrating. And so oftentimes I felt like I've been moving more backwards than forwards. I felt like I've taken more steps backwards than I have forwards sometimes. But as long as you keep your faith, trust in God's plan, and continue to move forward, you'll get to where you're meant to be. So everything I'm saying, I'm speaking to myself. Trust God's plan, continue moving forward, and you'll get to where you're meant to be. All right, now, number 3, and I thought this was perfect to make number 3. It's the rule of 3. Now, this is not really a thing. I just made this up because I thought it sounded cute, and I thought it would be cute to make it number 3. So I remember in high school, there was a girl, different girl than the girls I mentioned earlier, but I invited her to church a couple times, and we had, youth group on Wednesday nights, and so I invited her, hey, would you like to come to church with me? And every time I asked her, she'd always make up an excuse. She'd say, the first time she told me yes, and I really thought she was going to come, and then she told me last minute something came up. And then I asked her again, and same thing, some came up, or some kind of excuse. Then the third time, my thoughts are, I'm assuming that she didn't have the guts to just tell me no, which I wish she would have just said no, and we could have, moved on. And I would have been like, okay, she's not interested, great. Now I know, instead of me just thinking that she might be. It's just confusing. So, guys, side note, communicate clearly. Side note. But anyway, yeah, so after the third time I realized she wasn't interested, and I just decided to let it go. And I've also had that frustration with a lot of, other friendships, relationships, where I feel like I'm putting in more effort than the other person, or I'm inviting someone to hang out, not even just church-related stuff, but just to hang out and do stuff. The other person is, like, busy or things come up, and it's like, that's happened a few times where, a couple times in my life, I can think of, like, people, even people that just I've texted, it's like you text them, they don't respond, you follow up, they don't respond. Then you follow up again and they still don't respond. And then maybe they'll respond a week later saying something, hey, I'm sorry, I'm busy or whatever. And then you say, hey, no worries, let me know what times works for you. And then they still don't respond again. I've had that happen many times. And so what I've learned is the rule of 3. If you put effort into a friendship or relationship 3 times without seeing any effort reciprocated, it's time to either let it go, put the responsibility back on them. So if somebody says, hey, I'm so sorry. Like, for instance, when someone said after 3 times they didn't respond, and then they finally responded a week later, and they say, hey, sorry, I've been busy. I would love to hang out. When can we get together? Instead of trying to make it work, I would just say, okay, let me know what works for you. And that way you're putting it back on that person. It's actually something I learned from my dad. Put it back on that person. And it's important to recognize when your energy and effort are not being matched. This goes along with this point. Stop chasing people. And again, I'm speaking, all of these, again, are things that I'm still learning, man. And the things that I've gotten better at, but they're things I really wish I'd learned these things sooner in life. But stop chasing people. And, you may have heard this, especially when it comes to dating, but when you chase, they run. So people can sense desperation. So don't chase people to be your friend or, relationships or whatever. If someone wants to spend time with you, generally they will make an effort to do so. And, it shouldn't take you following up 3 times to get someone's attention, right? If that's the case, chances are you're probably not important in their life, at least in this season. Maybe the person does care. Maybe they're having some personal issues. Again, there are exceptions, but generally people, it takes you 3 times to reach out to someone. Like personally, I don't want to be friends with someone I have to reach out 3 times. Like I remember in last year, there's another girl I was friends with, and I was reaching out to her a couple times, and she's never responding. And then we finally made plans, and then she canceled on me, and then we never talked again the rest of the semester. And it's like, I don't want to be friends with someone, and it was frustrating because we had actually been good friends. We had talked regularly up until that point. We studied abroad together in Argentina in college, and it was a little disappointing because it's like it shouldn't take me following up 3 times with you just to hang out with you once for an entire semester. Like I just don't want to invest energy into a relationship like that anymore. Where it's like so much energy is being invested for like an hour of your time. I get it, people are busy. I'm busy. But I make time for the people who are important to me, right? And so people will make time for what's important. Maya Angelou said that famous quote, when people show you who they are, believe them the first time. People will show you who they are through their actions, not just through their words, right? Also, allow people to be who they're going to be, and don't try to change them. This is another thing I've learned. It's better to invest your time and energy in relationships where there's mutual effort and respect. And if there are issues, people are willing to learn and grow. And here's the thing, letting go of relationships, and the rule of 3 isn't about giving up. It's about recognizing your worth and not settling for one-sided connections. That's one thing, because I was desperate for friendships. I think also part of where that stemmed from for me was growing up as an only child, because I was always desperate to connect with people. I'm an only child, like I said. I don't have siblings, like a lot of people have siblings. I want connection, and I get lonely very easily because, I spend so much time alone.
Because, I have no choice.
No one else to hang out with at home. My parents are busy, so I think that's where a lot of that came from. And so I had to learn, hey, recognize your worth. You're not worth any less than other kids because you're an only child. There are people that appreciate you. Focus on those people. Don't focus on the people who don't appreciate you and respect your time. All right, number 5, you don't need to sacrifice sleep to become successful. All right, so there's a common misconception that sacrificing sleep is necessary to achieve success. And again, I love E.T., Eric Thomas, hip-hop preacher, but I disagree with him on the idea that you should, he mentioned one time that, Beyonce, one time she was chasing her dream and she didn't sleep for 3 days or something. And I was like, bro, that's crazy. Again, the hustle culture glorifies late nights and early mornings. And the reality is, again, guys, sleep. You need to sleep. I don't think it's possible to get, 8 hours sleep every single night of your life, right? It's not about perfection. Again, it's about consistency, right? So sleep is crucial for success, right? Because it's part of your health, right? If you sacrifice your sleep, you're sacrificing your health. It's important. Sleep is everything, It's everything. Especially as someone who creates things, like, it takes energy. I get energy by sleeping, right? Like, I need energy to create, to think of ideas, to come on here and make these videos, right? The grind. And I acknowledge there are seasons in life when you may need to, maybe you were sleeping 9 hours a night, you may need to sleep 7 to 8. Okay, maybe, again, whatever reason, maybe you're, trying to earn a little extra income, so you have to spend more time working. I understand there are seasons, but again, what I'm talking about is like a consistent pattern of every night of your life, you just sacrifice sleep. You sleep like 5 hours a night. Like, that's not healthy, guys. There are people, obviously, like I know Donald Trump, I think I heard he sleeps like 4 or 5 hours a night or something. I don't know how he does that, but I know that was me in high school, and I really suffered for it in a lot of ways. And I'm still kind of paying for it today in some ways. Because guys, remember, sleep, when you sacrifice a night of sleep, you really can't make up the sleep. Like, it takes a long time for you to quote unquote make up lost sleep, right? It takes a long time. So just remember that you sacrifice your sleep, you're sacrificing your health. And also I think we know sleep is important for clarity and focus. It improves your function, you can think more clearly, and you can make better decisions, and also stay focused. And also another thing is, I heard a stat, I don't know how true this is, but it's what I heard. It's, I think it's valid. I hope so. Google said it must be true. LOL. Anyway, but I think it was a stat that if you sleep less than like 7 hours a night, or like, I think it's like if you sleep 6 hours a night or less, your function and you're driving, you're basically driving. It's like the same as if you were driving drunk, which I think is crazy. Like, actually insane. Like, sleeping 6 hours a night or less is the same as if you were driving drunk, like a little bit drunk, which I think is insane. Because sleep is important, right? You can't function properly without it. Also, again, your physical health, it helps with weight loss, your immune system feeling good, stress, chronic health issues, like all this stuff. I think we all know it's just common sense. Get enough sleep, guys. Sicknesses, diseases, your emotional regulation so you can feel good. It's hard to feel good when you haven't slept enough, you're anxious, you're irritable, you're annoyed, and it affects your relationships. And then also I want to debunk this idea that pulling an all-nighter is not a badge of honor. It just means that you can't get your life together. It's a sign of disorganization, personally. And I think a lot of other creators also have said the same thing. I've heard that from other people. It can be a sign of disorganization because you're not focused and not dedicated enough to taking care of your health, right? So pulling all-nighters shouldn't be a badge of honor or sign of dedication. Sleep deprivation decreases productivity and creativity, right? It decreases it. So true. I can think of so many times where in high school I was a little behind on work or whatever, and I would sacrifice sleep to get it done, but I would wake up and then the first hour I wouldn't even be focused because I was so tired. So it's like if I had just slept, I didn't get anything done anyway. So it's like, so many times this happens. It's like I wake up 2 hours earlier than I would have. But then during those 2 hours, I was so tired, I could barely focus. So I didn't even get anything done. So I could have just slept anyway those 2 hours and I would have, fared much better, right? So many times this happened. And so again, point is prioritizing sleep leads to more efficient work. We all know all the stats. And again, I think also getting a sleep forces you to focus on your priorities and do less with your life because you have to make sure you get all the things that are important done, right? Once you get those done, you'll focus. Again, in order to improve your sleep, have a proper bedtime routine. Turn off electronics an hour before bed. Make sure that you're sleeping enough. Make sure set an alarm, just like, hey, time to go to bed. I think a lot of times we can get sucked into our electronics. We can just stay up all night. I think that also is part of the problem. Not just working, but yeah. So last point I'll make on this before I get to the final point is that success is a marathon, not a sprint. So remember that. It's a long-term journey. You can't just race to it. So yeah, okay, you can sacrifice sleep and you can achieve your 10-year plan in 6 months, but you still have the rest of your life to live. And if your quality of life has suffered because those 6 months you sacrificed sleep, was that worth it? Absolutely not. Right? So you have to remember, it's a marathon and not a sprint. Don't suffer and neglect your health just because you want to achieve your 10-year plan in 6 months, right? Don't sacrifice your health for short-term games. It's not worth it. Prioritize your sleep and your health and your family, and you'll be better equipped to achieve your goals, and you'll be more fulfilled, right? Right? You'll be more fulfilled, because what's the point of making all this money when you have these health issues and all this stuff because, you didn't get enough sleep, you didn't take care of yourself, right? We've made it to the final point. Number 5 is, again, kind of related to number 1, but it's okay to be misunderstood. So, there was a song that I wrote during my senior year of high school. It was called My Mind. And if you've been following me since the day that I started this channel, you might have heard the song. And I wrote the song from a place of anger and from a place of wanting to be understood by people. I wanted to explain myself to people who criticize me and share answers that I wish I had given in conversations that would have shut people up. And I wrote the song because I wanted to prove to people that I was smart. I wanted to prove to them that I was right, that I knew what I was doing in life. And I shared the song back in late 2020. That's when I released it. And around early 2022, I felt the Holy Spirit convict me, take the song down. And that moment marked a shift in my music because I had made a number of songs up to that point to try to prove myself, including My Mind. And I realized that I no longer wanted to only make music that was controlled by how other people treated me or what people said about me or what interactions went wrong, right? There's always going to be someone who doesn't like you or who misunderstands you, and it's exhausting trying to explain yourself to everybody. I wanted to start making music that shared my struggles, encouraged people, and sparked conversations about faith, because it's more freeing to create music from that place. It feels more authentic, instead of just making songs that are angry trying to get back at people. That's not freeing, right? It's more freeing to create music from that place of creativity and expression rather than trying to prove myself to people, right? Here's the thing, no matter how perfect you are, some people are still going to misunderstand you, right? Some people have preconceptions in their mind about you or experiences with you. And sometimes people just don't like you, so they just don't even care to understand you, right? Some people have deaf ears to your explanations, no matter how perfect you are. Even the most well-intentioned actions can be misinterpreted, and sometimes there's nothing you can do about it. They misunderstood Jesus. Again, for crying out loud, Jesus was the most misunderstood person on the planet, I believe. Despite he had wisdom, he had compassion, he was sinless, he had love, and people questioned his motives. The Pharisees, the Jews, they doubted his message, they condemned him, they killed him, for crying out loud. If someone as perfect as Jesus was misunderstood, it's unrealistic to expect that we won't be at times, right? You cannot control how others perceive you, and trying to do so is only going to lead to frustration and stress. So focus on your own integrity, knowing that their true character will shine through, even if others don't see it right away. God will expose all truth in the end. Additionally, being misunderstood can actually be a sign that you're being true to yourself, right? Because not everyone's going to understand you. I think of the Apostle Paul. He was heavily criticized in Scripture, but he didn't go around trying to prove himself to people, right? He knew his mission, and he wrote in Galatians 1:10, am I now trying to win the approval of human beings or of God? Am I trying to please people? If I were still trying to please people, I would not be a servant of Christ, right? And when you stand firm in your beliefs, values, and actions, you're not going to fit into everybody's expectations, right? And that's a good thing. So be encouraged when people misunderstand you, because Jesus was misunderstood. There's true freedom in letting go of this need to control what other people think about you. Trying to explain yourself can be exhausting, and it can distract you from your true purpose. So sometimes when people criticize you or they make unfair statements, the best course of action is to just don't respond. Just simply say okay or ignore their comments. Let God be your vindicator and let God expose the truth to people, right? The only one you need to prove yourself to is God. Prove that you could be a faithful servant with what he has entrusted to you, right? Colossians 3:23 says, whatever you do, work at it with all your heart as working for the Lord, not for human masters. You have to give an account to God for your actions at the end of the day. You're not giving an account to other people. If there's anything that God needs to expose regarding other people's false accusations about you, those things will be exposed in the day of judgment. But until then, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Just Google Pilate Jesus question or whatever. But yeah, Pilate asked him a question and he didn't respond. He didn't say anything. He was silent. He didn't feel the need to be understood by people, right? And so focus on your mission and your calling. Don't let the fear of being misunderstood, lastly, don't let the fear of being misunderstood hold you back or make you feel like, don't let the fear of being misunderstood hold you back. Stay true to who you are, keep pursuing your goals, fulfill God's calling for your life, and trust that those who truly matter will eventually see the real you. Well, that's a wrap for today's video. Click the links on here to check out some of my other videos. And if you enjoyed this video, smash the like button and subscribe to the channel. My goal for the end of the year is to get to 500 subscribers. We're just literally at the halfway mark, exactly the halfway mark. So I would love for you to be part of that journey. Hit that subscribe button, help me get to 500 subscribers by the end of the year so we can continue spreading the good news, the gospel, and as well as motivation and encouraging music and content on this channel. So see you in the next video, my friend. Peace.